disruptive.
America that I fought for.
Weird thing to happen. Hello, one and all. Welcome to this edition of Kitz Corner. Hope you're having a fantastic day so far. So Greta Thunberg is making appearances again, and she has been hanging around with the world's elites, the billionaires, the Davos bunch, which has kind of pretty much exposed her for being more of a political psyops tool for the globalist establishment than she is at being a full-hearted activist. Because billionaires are not the solution to the environmental impacts that billionaires have caused. Concerning the fact that we have over 1,000 military bases around the world that is constantly advancing pollution within the world, the fact that 100+ companies have contributed to, more toxicity in the air and the atmosphere and our waters than ever before, concerning the fact that, these are people that ride private jets constantly back and forth from country to country to have these secret meetings about climate change. It kind of makes you think that they're not actually in it for climate change. I mean, it kind of seems redundant that billionaires in private jets and mansions that they deforest the entire population for should never be the solution for cleaning up environmental disasters. They should never be the solution to it. So, and this is even more further proof of it. So, Greta Thunberg was invited to Kiev to meet Volodymyr Zelensky. I kid you not, CTV News saying that Ukraine Zelensky meets Greta Thunberg and others to address the war efforts on ecology. Or is it ecologically? I think it's pronounced ecology. At least I'm going with how it looks. But I could be wrong. So here's video proof of this, where she goes to meet world leaders, and again, proving more and more that she's just an actor. She is a complicit psyops of the globalist political establishment, the neoliberal agenda, that says they're going to fight climate change, but actually do more terror and destruction for the earth than actually promoting environmental, natural solutions that would benefit the greater good. And she's a full-grown adult. She's not a child anymore. So she would know better than to hang out with a bunch of, aristocrats and world leaders. If a world leader is calling you your best friend, you're doing a very poor job at trying to resist the polluters out there. You're doing a very, very poor job, considering the fact that Volodymyr Zelensky is in a war zone right now that's causing devastation globally. But not only that, has proof and evidence that Ukrainian officials have, helped enwrench the destruction of the Nord Stream 2 pipeline, a natural gas reserve that is causing a huge environmental impact in the ocean. And Greta Thunberg has not said a thing about that. She has not said a thing about train derailment. She has not said much about Monsanto. She has not said much about Bill Gates, how he's buying up all this agricultural land to get rid of plants so we can have plant-based food and not the plant that you're thinking of. I think the plant that, produces the most pollutants. Not a word's being said about this. But here's her little meeting, her meet and greet with a nefarious war buffoon.
It's very important have to have this. You made the decision about this compact of very concrete steps.
That's it. That's literally it. It's important that we have an important stance on the impacts of this. That is, I can't believe that at, was she 20 years old, 21 years old? I know she's in college right now, that a college student who has been doing environmental activism since when she was a teenager, or even before before a teenager, would fall for something like this. It's so obvious that this is a complete sham. It's so obvious that she is complicit with the worst polluters, the worst people that are making the biggest impacts on the environmental disaster crisis. They are the worst people to be in contact to. You should be criticizing the war machine. You should be criticizing NATO. You should be criticizing this person. Not shaking his hand, sitting at the table and listening to do a Marlon Brando impression of like, oh yeah, we're gonna do something. We're gonna do something. After my daughter's wedding, we're gonna do something. I think we need to understand the impact of the environment. Like, what is that? What is that? How are you acknowledging that there's disaster afoot? Are you acknowledging that all the military supplies that we've been giving you, all the tanks, all the missiles, all the nukes and bombs, and everything in between is causing a huge amount of impact? Is that what you're addressing? No? You're just doing it for shits and giggles? As this person points out from Bernie's tweets, nice little handle there. She says, Greta, in the middle of the terrible Ukraine war killing thousands of young people, the elite sent Greta to Kiev to remind you about net zero and the things that really matter. Now, net zero, that's the thing that they're trying to endorse. That's the policy to try to limit the amount of carbon dioxide in the air. Which sounds terrible. It sounds terrible to have that much carbon dioxide. But as we showed before in a NASA study, and what science has proven, that thing, that carbon dioxide, there's a natural process that's actually helping the planet do better. It's the other pollutants that we should be worried about. That's the thing that we need to cut down to zero. It's not carbon dioxide that's the problem. It's everything else on top of the carbon dioxide, which none of that ever gets mentioned. None of it ever gets addressed. They're not mentioning, things like hemp. That would be way better, for manufacturing to agriculture. Like, that is the miracle crop that we used to use back in our ancestors' days. That never gets addressed in the climate agenda. That never gets addressed. Or the energy independence, they never address that. They never going to address, the war machine and the bombing and the nuclear weapons that were causing environmental damage. We're not addressing that in the climate agenda. But net zero, just it doesn't even make sense. So she points out, you are being played for big money. Can you see it? Can you see it yet? I think by now she could see it. I think by now, considering that she's a full-grown adult, wearing nice clothes, and doing these luxury events, I think she could pretty well see that she's being played. Like, it's not a child actor. She's not, doing it because her parents are telling her. She's a full-grown adult who's been doing this environmental activism for years. So, that she knows this, but she's complicit with it because she thinks she's doing good. The same reason that Sean Penn, who used to be this humanitarian activist and cared about people and didn't want war to happen, is now the biggest war pig out there because Sean Penn thinks that Ukraine bombing and exploding people is somehow a vitriol for humanity. Because he thinks he's doing good. He thinks it's good-souled and good-hearted. That's how manipulated and brainwashed we are as a society. That the most evil things that we are doing right now, people think they're doing good. Because we're being told that we're doing good, but we're not. It's vile and so desperately wrong. That's exactly the point. She's meeting with world leaders that are causing more destruction to this planet than you and I in our entire lifetime. These are people that you should be smacking down. What happened to the Greta that made that anger speech about, you're ruining my childhood, you're ruining my future? What happened to that? What happened to that, you know, the terrifying billionaire's terrified of this child now? Just completely folded. So, and this happened too that I want to show. So, Reuters, which is owned by basically the globalist elites of the world. Like, Reuters is a complete psyops of the global agenda. They had this video out that says around 20 climate activists, including Greta Thunberg, took part in a protest outside an entrance to the port in a Swedish city of Malmo. So, this is the supposed activism that she does. And, again, it doesn't really help the situation. This is her pretending and acting that she's really in for the climate, really in for the environment, while hanging out with billionaires that are causing the destruction to unfold. And this is the video here. Look at that. So the cops are just walking her off the road there, and she seems to be giggling. Did you see that? She's giggling about the fact that officers are just, you know, taking her by like it's a free ride. Hey, I'm getting a piggyback ride from an officer. Yay, I'm such a good activist. I really care for the planet. I'm getting a ride from an officer. While really ignoring the bigger impacts on the environment and society. And as George Carlin pointed out, the planet's fine. We don't have to save the planet. The planet is a rock. It's us that are getting screwed. We're the ones causing our own destruction. We're the ones that need fresh water and fresh air to survive. And we're the ones that have to fix our own goddamn mistakes. And obviously Greta Thunberg has not thought this through.
And so we put our bodies in front of the oil tankers and to block them from getting into the port, and thereby we also stop the fossil fuel industry from operating that right there.
Ursäkta, svenska? Då kör vi igen. Den anvisade platsen är där.
Nej! Nej! What do we want? Climate justice! When? Now! When? Now!
Like, this just seems like nothing. Compared to the real standing points, like when France stormed into BlackRock and caused havoc on one of the most infuriating international corporations in the world. This is a joke of activism. This is like a mockery of the ideas of what it is to be an activist. Like, think of what Martin Luther King or what Woodstock represented, or, you know, the people that actually did something to make a huge impact. And you have an adult here, a college student, sitting in front of an entranceway to an oil reserve in Sweden, being hauled off by an officer and giggling about it like it's some sort of play. Like, ha ha ha, I'm playing this character so well. But not actually having a major impact to being an environmentalist. And that's why even a lot of environmentalists are attacking or are criticizing her. A lot of actual environment scientists, people that actually studied the climate, people actually caring about pollution, are saying that what a joke she is, that she's a psyops, because she's not actually doing real good for the actual purpose of the climate and environment and protecting us from the pollutants in the air. She's not standing up against the war machine. She's not standing against the 100+ companies that are causing pollutants in the air. She's not, railing against Washington. She's not railing against Russia. She's not railing against Saudi Arabia. She's not railing against Canada. She's not railing against the global agenda. She goes over to Davos like it's like she's a guest. Not to rail against them, but gets invited to it. That's why this is such a sham. That's why people understand what a joke this is. So I retweeted saying, meanwhile, 1,000, I don't know why I said 100. Meanwhile, 1,000+ military bases are causing the most pollution on Earth to drone and bomb over fossil fuel consumption endorsed by the World Economic Forum, hedge fund billionaires flying private jets to Davos. Think of that concept for a second. That she's trying to block the way of an oil production in Sweden, when literally she's also being invited by hedge fund billionaires on their private jets and their private limos and their private yachts and all these millionaire houses that are taking, that are taking away forest areas, cutting down trees. She's not angered about that. She's not angered about the destruction of Nord Stream. And I said no protests on Nord Stream, no anger at Saudi Arabia, nor any protests to the deforestation of the Amazon. Did she know that's going on? That right now in Brazil they're cutting down the rainforest, they're cutting down the Amazon? How come there's no protest on that? How come there's no protest on that? How come there's no protest on the risk of nuclear war? If we go into nuclear war, that is going to do a huge impact on our stability, on humanity, on life, on all living creatures on this planet. None of that ever gets mentioned. But her doing a photo op, doing a little skit here in front of a Swedish oil refinery, considers her the greatest activist of all time. Like, it's just it's so absurd. And that's why I said, sorry, Greta, go back to Davos, you oligarch psyop. Because she knows better. She knows that this is not going to do anything. This is a joke. If you actually want to rock the boat, you have to rock the boat. You have to actually stir things up. You have to actually make noise. Look at what the Yellow Vest movement did in France. Look at what the truckers did in Canada. Look at all the walkouts that people have done. Like, there's way better forces of activism than what she's doing on an average day. But yet, more attention's on her. More attention's on, billionaires like Bill Gates or politicians like Al Gore. And I watched an Inconvenient Truth, and I got soaked into that, and I understood what he had to say, but I don't think Al Gore is the sole proprietor solution artist to combat this problem. I don't think Al Gore is the solution in it. Same with Greta Thunberg, same with Klaus Schwab. And what's leading into these 15-minute cities, these climate lockdowns. These are not solutions. This is more havoc. This is more chaos. This is more authoritarian ruling based on an issue that we should actually be looking into more and come up with better solutions. But we're not even having those conversations. Like I said, they don't mention hemp. They don't mention nuclear energy. They don't mention biofuels. They don't mention it's just the absurdity of all this. Even recycling. Even recycling that I still do because I don't know. I'm just that person. But when you realize that most of the recycling, and I didn't even know this for the longest time until, kind of recently, that most of the recycling that you put into the blue bin or you put into your gray bin that you think is going to get reused and repurposed ends up going to the landfill. All the all the plastics and metals that you throw into a box and think that's going to be cut down for better purposes? No, they just throw into a landfill. Same with compost. You know, I respect the idea. I love the idea that we can turn food waste into actual soil. It seems like the most natural thing we could be doing. But is it really natural to put into a plastic container and then having a diesel truck pick it up, send it off to another place so it can just pile up in a landfill? There's a lot of questions. There's a lot of questions and a lot of concerns. And as someone that wants to do better for the environment, wants to do better for nature, I think we need a more healthier respect for nature. This is not the way to do it. This is not the way to do it. Greta Thunberg is not the person, the saint, when it comes to the environment. I think we need to actually look at people that understand nature better, have a better connection between preserving clean air and clean water and someone who's just chanting and doing a skit in front of an oil refinery and thinking that this is somehow great activism.